Hello everybody, welcome to my very brief, casual, and unscripted review of Lovely Planet 2, April Skies. Now, why am I saying that it's really short? Because if you have played the original Lovely Planet, then yes, you have already played this one. It's just more Lovely Planet. They added more levels, they have 5 original worlds, the music is slightly different. The music is probably the biggest disappointment out of the entire game because I was expecting a wholly, totally different soundtrack. But it's kind of just remixes of previous songs that we've already heard, so yeah, that's a bit upsetting. But it's still good, it still sounds really nice. And for the people that don't know what Lovely Planet is probably the cutest and nicest, most pastel, bright colored shooter I've ever played. It is very fast, you just go bam 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 from one level to the other, hitting as many targets as you possibly can without missing a whole bunch of times, and then making it to the goal. You just go from A to B and hit everything and don't die, one hit and you're done. It's very much like those really hard games like Super Meat Boy or whatever, where you just press one key on the keyboard and you're immediately back at the start to retry the whole thing all over again. You get a star rating for how good you do, how fast you do things, how accurately you shoot. I did say that this is a shooter, but you're going to be doing a whole lot less shooting than you might expect because every single bullet counts. If you just have one bullet that you miss, then already that goes from 3 stars to 2 stars. They are very unforgiving with how perfect you have to do these levels. Sometimes you will do it perfectly, but you didn't do it fast enough, so there you are, retrying, until you get the 3 stars on the whole level. There are about 100 levels in Lovely Planet 2, and they kind of have to, considering how lightning fast most of the levels are. It's very visually pleasing, I'll tell you that. Something that I still have not gotten tired of from Lovely Planet 1 to 2 is that it still looks great. Very simple. It kind of reminds me of Katamari Damacy in a way. The very simple Japanese style. There's a lot of Japanese text in here, by the way, which is a nice little aesthetic thing that I like a lot. There's no crosshair for you to be aiming at. It's almost like those classic shooters like Doom or Quake, where you kind of just shoot and, point at it and pray that you hit something. You can play with mouse and keyboard, or you can use an Xbox 360 controller. That's what I was using for most of my playthrough, and I found myself switching a lot from keyboard and mouse to controller. There were many times where there were certain levels that I couldn't beat with a controller, switched over to mouse and keyboard, and I did it in like 2 seconds. Same thing, for some reason my mindset or the way that I was doing things for the sensitivity in my mouse didn't really allow me to beat it with a mouse and keyboard. Switched over to the controller and it just felt fresh, it felt different, and I could beat something very easily. So yeah, I went back and forth a lot, and honestly, whatever suits you the most, whatever you like best, you can go for it. Both with the controller, with the gamepad, and with mouse and keyboard is very comfortable. It's very fun to play with both. Now, I know that I just said the Lovely Planet 2 is just one with more stuff. In fact, I don't really feel the 2 in this game at all. This feels more like Lovely Planet 1.5. Even the title, Lovely Planet 2, April Skies, like the word April Skies, it kind of sounds like a DLC expansion for Lovely Planet 1 as opposed to a full-on sequel. Now granted, despite me saying that, they do add more things to the game that make it far more interesting to play through. And of course, makes it more challenging. You still have the platforms you have to jump through, you still have those things that make you jump really high. The apples are back, which are the bane of my existence in this stupid game. I can do so many things in this game perfectly without much struggle, but those apples, those freaking apples always get me. And they added a little something in here too, where you have a visual cue on the screen where you got like a little red frame on the screen whenever there's an apple in the air, because sometimes, the noise for when the apple falls into the air, it's not super loud, it's a very subtle sound, so you might miss it, and so seeing the visual cue on there is very useful and a really good improvement in you being aware of what you're supposed to be shooting at. There are also new enemies that charge towards you. There's some enemies that are more like transportation that you can fly towards, that'll take you to more places. That allows for more platforming-ish kind of things, where you jump and there's no floor, but there's a bunch of enemies that you can chain, where you can get pulled towards them, like twice, 3 times, 4 times in a row. Sometimes the enemies are layered, where you can, get rid of one enemy, but then there's another one behind them that charges towards you. So yeah, it's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of getting into the level, dying a lot, and then memorizing the whole thing so that you can get through it like a pro. And even then, you'll probably get a 1 star or 2 stars because you didn't do it fast enough. And of course, there's other stuff. There's a couple of secrets here and there. There are achievements. There's another more challenging game mode beyond just the regular game. But all in all, it's still the same Lovely Planet as always. And I love Lovely Planet. I think it's a really good game. I enjoy myself a lot with it. But I was kind of hoping a little bit more with the sequel. If you're going to slap a 2 at the title of your game, I'm expecting something pretty big, right? Have a totally different world, different enemies that look different. Even down to the world that you're at, from the enemies, the way that the difficulty progresses, and the music that it's used. To me, it really feels like a DLC expansion more than a full-on sequel to Lovely Planet. It's a little disappointing that we didn't get something vastly new and different, but what we did get is still pretty good. These are some very well-designed levels. Of course, very difficult and challenging, especially if you want to get the 3 stars on all of the levels. But it's still a hell of a lot of fun. And I'm really sorry to say, but that's kind of it. There really isn't a whole lot left for me to talk about. If you've played the previous one, you've played this one, and if you are done with Lovely Planet 1 and you just want to play more Lovely Planet that looks exactly the same and plays exactly the same but with more difficulty stuff and newer mechanics, you know, put into the mix, then go ahead and play this, because it's I guess it's a tried and true formula. They didn't fix what wasn't broken, even though I would have liked it if they kind of just took a more bold approach into just giving us a wider variety of different levels or different worlds, different color palettes or something like that. At least make the game look different. It's so identical to the first one that I can't help but feel like they could have done a bigger effort into really making it different and really catching people off guard with something vastly more distinct on top of the new mechanics that they added on to it. You know, I think the biggest change is that world that has like all the fog on it, but the whole challenge of it is that you can't see, you know, and that's kind of it. Yeah, I really do think that there could have been more done here, and there's barely anything done here. This might sound insulting, but I feel like all the new stuff is something that, you know, a modder would usually go for, right? It's like, oh, Lovely Planet is so good, and I want to add more stuff to it to make it more difficult, right? Like how Super Mario World has Kaizo World or something like that. Well, here you have the April Skies mod, where, you know, there's so many other things that makes it so much more difficult, right? I don't feel like this is worthy of a sequel. I feel like this should have been a DLC expansion, but it's still good, you know, and that's my problem. I feel bad talking bad about it because it is still just as good as the original Lovely Planet. But in itself, that's also kind of the problem, right? It's just as good, not better. I don't know, maybe with Lovely Planet 3 they can really overhaul it and show us something that's truly different. And yeah, I said this was gonna be probably my shortest review ever, and here we go, that's it. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much to Tiny Build Games for sending me the review copy for this game and making this review possible. Thank you very much for your support. And by the time you guys watch this video, the game should already be out by now. And yeah, maybe I'll stream it. I'll stream it on the day that the game launches so you guys can see the game for yourself. And you can see me just rage out and yeah, struggle with this game as the levels get more and more and more difficult. So yeah, I apologize if this video came off as a little too negative. I do like the game. It's good. It's just not the big change that I was personally expecting. It's more Lovely Planet. So if you like that, then you can't go wrong with this. But I wouldn't blame you if you end up leaving this experience just kind of wanting a little bit more out of it.